what's going on? Today I was going to talk about some of the things that I do for my dry fire practice. I'm going to talk about three basic drills that I do. They're all just static movement. These are things you can do, in your bedroom where I'm at right now, and really harp on some fundamentals and, in my opinion, get really good and familiar with your weapon system. Clear and safe. First thing we're going to do is work on our draw. I do 10 minutes of just draw. The first 5 minutes as I draw, I'm really not going to try to use my left hand to accelerate. Most of all these drills that I'm going to do, I try to really work the majority of my time at about 70 to 80% of my speed, harping on the fundamentals, making sure that I'm getting good index, getting the webbing of my hand good and deep in the beaver tail, making sure that my birdie finger is indexing correctly at the bottom of the frame. Another thing that I like to do with my draw that I don't really see a lot of people discuss is the angle of my elbow. As I draw, I try to make sure that my elbow comes backwards instead of out. And the reason that I do this, one of the things that I've noticed, it makes for, one, it allows you to come, as soon as you clear the holster, you can drive onto target more consistently. I wouldn't say it's necessarily faster, but it seems for me in practice to have been more consistent. Another thing is you can notice when your elbow comes back, the webbing of your hand stays true to the frame of the gun. As soon as I pull my elbow out, it cocks my thumb backwards. So when you come to draw, you're not actually getting your thumb high and deep on the beaver tail. So like I said, one of the things that I like to try to do is, as I'm in my start position, I like to try to bring my elbow back, and as I'm getting into the beaver tail, once again, it allows me to clear the holster and drive a little forward. Just something that I personally do. I don't really see a lot of people talk about the finite details of kind of your movement, but I notice on stages and just at matches that there's a lot of guys that kind of chicken wing their arm as they go to grab it. I feel like it creates a very inconsistent grip, as well as I think it's slower. You just have more movement. So slower meaning like, tenths or hundredths. But once again, it's something that I personally do. So as I'm doing my 10 minutes of draw, I like to make sure that I'm getting good and deep in the beaver tail, marrying my hands together well, getting a lot of good contact and pressure with my support hand, and driving out. The last 5 minutes, I really try to help use my left hand to aid in driving the gun out, and really try to accelerate the movement of the gun. It definitely helps increase your time. It will also make you jumpy. So, to use like JJ's rule of like a 90-10, I think it's a fantastic thing that he does and he teaches, where he's really trying to gas it 90%, and then that last for 10, he's really trying to control what he's doing, making for a more steady sight picture at the end when you're actually ready to squeeze. Another thing that I do is I like to make sure that the trigger, the hammer is active, so I can practice prepping the trigger. So what I do is I come in, get on here, and then I prep. I get all the way past this, I'm trying to sit on, what a lot of people call that second wall, like really right before it breaks. I have the Gray Guns trigger in here, and I think I'm like consistent about 2.5 pounds. So it wasn't much of a change from the original trigger for the Legion. I think it was like 3. So it really didn't change much up for me. but I like to try to make sure that I'm really driving the preparation of the trigger down and getting right there before the shot breaks. So to see it here, first 5 minutes, once again, I'm not going to really accelerate. Come out, making sure that I'm holding myself accountable for my sight picture. I have a 4x4 target with a circle about that big on it at about 5 yards away. Really trying to focus in on the circle and make sure that I'm driving my dot onto the circle every time, but I'm also allowing myself to see an acceptable sight picture. It doesn't have to be perfect every time before I'm actually sending it, but without the gun going off, during dry fire, I try to hold myself extremely accountable for my sight picture. Coming in, making sure that I'm there. I would probably say 95, 98% of the time, I'm on my circle. But if I'm a half an inch left or right or something like that, to me, that is an acceptable sight picture. So I feel like that was a win. The last 5 minutes, I really try to drive with my left hand and accelerate it and start to gain control and using JJ's 90-10 rule and really get on there, as well as prepping the trigger. The second thing that I like to do is I like to take out the magazine, keep the magazine that I have in the front is for my speed change. So I'm going to not necessarily use I'm going to decock the striker, let the trigger go. I'm going to work from a compressed position. I want to drive out, get my sight picture. Once again, just trying to practice acquiring sight picture, whatever is acceptable. Pull the trigger twice, and what I'm going to basically be doing is practicing a 2R2. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to break grip. I want to push the button as if I was dropping a magazine, regain grip with my left hand. As soon as I get done, as soon as this hand leaves the weapon system, I want to try to make sure that I'm indexing. It was a big problem that I had when I first started doing static drills. Was I would get a good purchase of the magazine, but I would beer can it, or I call this pussyfooting it. I would do this number, and sometimes it works, but what I've noticed is it makes for a very inconsistent inserting of the magazine. Having your finger index really drives it home and allows you to insert more cleanly more often. So to see that here, come in, do 2, and once again, 70 to 80% of the speed. Here, no magazine. One of the other things that I'm trying to work on during this is making sure my eyes are moving the way they're supposed to move. Come in here, after I break the shot, as soon as I start, I want to start focusing in on my weapon system. Once I regain the grip and this is coming in, as soon as the magazine is inserted and fully seated in, as I'm starting to reacquire my grip, I want to transition my eyes back to the target so I'm ready to break the next shot. For the third drill, once again, I do that for 10 minutes as well. For the third drill, we're gonna reinsert the magazine. One of the main reasons that I'm not using a magazine on that one segment of 10 minutes is I just get more reps. It's less me picking up a magazine. It allows me to work on really harp on the fundamentals of breaking grip, re-gripping, and indexing with 2 points. We want to index 1 with our palm so we can get the drive of the magazine in, and 2 with our finger so it guides us. We're all familiar with this whole deal, right? So we can just naturally do that like all day long, but that's kind of perverted. I get it. So the third thing that I do, that I finish up with, I do once again another 10 minutes. I'm gonna put it all together and I'm gonna do a 2R2. I'm gonna really drive with my left hand. Once again, holding myself accountable, squeezing the trigger twice, trying to make sure that what I'm seeing through my dot is not being disturbed outside of an alpha, right? Trying to not slap the trigger too aggressively. I do ride the trigger nowadays. I've learned to really ride the trigger, and you end up with a better follow-up shot. But holding myself accountable, breaking 2, coming in, changing, getting back on, and breaking 2. So just to see that here. That's what I try to do. Once again, now I'm picking up a magazine every time. Right. The last thing that I do is I push the speed. I will run my timer. For a 2R2, I set my par time at 1.8. A lot of the times I can match 1.8. In real fire, I tend to be a little faster. I can get 1.7-ish when I'm actually sending it, but during dry fire, I'm holding myself more accountable towards my sight picture, which tends to slow me down. That's kind of a bad thing and kind of a good thing. I don't want that to transfer over into real fire during a match or something of that nature. But during dry fire, I feel like I need to really be accountable for what my dot is doing. So I would rather build those type of habits than build poor habits, just flying off the handle and really sending it crazy, and then getting out there and then realizing by the time I slow down to actually acquire a sight picture, I'm doing a 2R2 in 2.5 seconds, which is just unacceptable when you're trying to really move up in the high classification. I think the pro shooters, their standard for a 2R2 is around like 1.5. I could be wrong on that. If I'm wrong on that, put it in the comments and let me know. But for me personally, when I'm running my par timer, I will do a 1.8, and I try to at least match it. Now, once again, I'm holding myself accountable. I'm actually pulling the trigger twice. So right there, I mean, even if you bang it, you're what, 0.3? That's a 1.5 split for 2 of them. So that's 0.3. You do that twice, you're 0.6. You got a 0.8 draw, that's 1.4. That means your mag change is crazy fast, right? You're doing all that in 0.2 seconds. It's tough. So in real course of fire, when I'm at the range or when I'm doing this on an actual stage, it's going to be a little different. And I do feel like when you're running dry fire, you should set your par time to really push the pace, but not losing some of the fundamentals, like seeing what you're doing, actually seeing the dot. Once again, having an acceptable sight picture. I don't have to be on my circle that I have out there, but I need to be close to it so I know I got alphas. Within 10 yards, a 2R2, you should be able to be sub 2 seconds and land 4 alphas, the way that I feel. That's the standard that I hold myself to right now, and hopefully one day maybe that will drop. So when I train it at a 1.8 and really try to push it. So if I can match a 1.8 in dry fire, and I tend to be on par with that or faster in actual fire, then I'm doing really good. So just come in, drive it. And that's what I do the last, probably 5 minutes. I'll do that, and with the timer, and sometimes without the timer, just really pushing it. but I try to move at a 100% speed. Now I know when we're on a stage, we want to perform at about 90 to 95% of our speed before we get out of control. During dry fire, I try to push myself those last 5 minutes at 100% of my speed. And what it'll do for me is it'll highlight the things that I'm doing poorly. One of the things that I'm really guilty of is as soon as I come back, I'll pussyfoot again, right? I'll grab my magazine and I don't really have a good grip on it. It's not really in here, and I really want to get deeper, a further index closer to the end of the magazine next to the bullets, and really getting the base plate deep into my palm. That's one of the things that I'm like really guilty of. I do this a ton, and I still find that during the 100%, I'm coming down and doing that. So next time I go do my dry fire the next day, I remember that, and I really try to work on when I'm isolating the drill, you know, making sure that I'm grabbing and getting a good purchase with proper fundamentals on the magazine. This is some of the things that I do that I've really learned that have helped me out and really accelerated me in a fast pace to perform at a higher level in USPSA. I really appreciate y'all watching. If you're enjoying this type of content, you know, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe.